Welcome, one and all, to the May 17th edition of Signals from Mars. I am joined by the illustrious Jeremy Weltman. We are back for another monthly albums review. This is the first time we've been able to sync up to talk about April releases. Jeremy, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, Victor. Thank you. Really nice weather here in the UK at the moment, so really enjoying that. How are you doing?
Doing good. Our weather isn't as nice as it is a little rainy, but is what it is. We'll have to live with it and just kind of power on. Anyway, there's plenty of good music to keep it bright and shiny on the inside. So there you go. All right. So for those that don't know, we recap some releases that have come out in the past month, the previous month, I should say. Jeremy and I will discuss some highlights and some that stood out to us and pick our favorites for the week. Going back to April 5th, we had new releases from the Black Keys with Ohio Players, Corpaclani with something in Finnish, Ingested, Blacktop Mojo, Cobra Page with her solo debut, Filth, Austere, Alpha Wolf, excuse me, Proto Sequence, Era, Disbelief, the Neptune Power Federation, Temple of the Fuzzwitch, Atomic Dogs, White Dog, Planet on a Chain, Iron Monkey, Friends of Hell, Funeral Leech, EPs from Chief State and Jason Blake, featuring, I can open this, featuring Ralph Wenroth Brown, reissues and a reissue from Five Finger Death Punch. It's essentially the Afterlife Deluxe Edition. All right, Jeremy, what are some of the albums that you listened to and which one stood out for you this week?
Yeah, so bear with me because April the 5th, I had quite a chocker week compared to the others. So I had to listen to the debut album from Atomic Kings. This band is obviously from Phoenix, Arizona. They include the former Badlands bassist Greg Chasson, or Chasson, however you want to pronounce it. Real sort of good time, laid back rock and roll, this album. Sort of had tinges of Aerosmith, Black Crowes, Stevie Ray Vaughan, that sort of stuff. Very much a 70s more than an 80s vibe on this. And for the most part, I thought it was very good too, very listenable effort. It was nicely mixed. It was produced on, a fairly lean budget with all the sort of 70s extras you'd expect. There was even a blues harp solo on there on the opening track, and occasionally some harmonized backing vocals on there. So yeah, I quite enjoyed that one. I also tried out another 70s feel album, Double Dog Dare by White Dog. That was okay, but it wasn't quite as good as the previous one, the Atomic Kings one. So I moved on and I listened to the punky thrash sounds of Culture of Death by the fabulously titled band Planet on a Chain. A lot of sort of shouty angst on this. It all sounded a bit samey. But it had its moments. A band that would kind of fill a small pub with a big sound. That's the sort of the way I describe them. And the same could be said as well for Spleen and Goad by the British sludge metal band Iron Monkey. Some good songs on this. I really like Rat Flag, which was quite an interesting song. So yeah, there was some good music around. And then I moved on to the doom-laden effort by Temple of the Fuzzwitch called Apotheosis. That was on Ripple Music, and apparently it's their third album. So I went back and listened to their earlier stuff as well, and I noticed there's some real changes in production on each one. And for me, I think they finally got it right with this one. I think there was, they got the echo right on it. They had the brooding tones right on this. Lots of sort of Black Sabbath style riffing, not least on the album Closer Ashes, which I enjoyed. And there was a nice mix of the sort of clear and growly vocals on it, so it all kind of worked for me. I really liked it quite a bit, and that was my album of the week.
Okay, cool. I listened to a bunch of different things. I listened to the Black Keys album. which was all right. It was pretty much in line with everything that they've released in the past. Listened to the Blacktop Mojo album Pollen, which was um, kind of over polished, kind of too radio friendly for me. Kind of expecting something else. Alpha Wolf, which is kind of in line with other stuff that they've released. For me, the album of the week, though, is the very genty Era with Cure. I had posted a few videos on the Patreon page, and yeah, I mean, there's aspects of this that are very in line with a lot of more modern metal bands, but it's got some melodies and different things that really stood out to me, and had some earwormy type choruses there that got stuck in my head. So that's my pick for April 5th. So cool. Let's move on to the second week of April. April the 12th, we had new releases from Set Your Sails, Vulture, Tier. I get it. Well, this is French. Tonnery, Tonnerre. I don't know how you pronounce that. I didn't take French. Tarot, Imminence, Make Sure, King Zebra, Blue Oyster Cult, The Running Gag, Riot V, which did not come out this date. um, About Us, Belmont, The Vision Bleak, Heavy Temple, Jacob Castile, I guess pronounced, Necrot, Nest, EPs from North Lane, Greyhaven, Tina Fey, Mutually Asserted Destruction, and let's see, there's a reissue by I may have this wrong. I believe I do. Attacker, the God Particle. I don't believe this is a reissue.
Could be a new album, folks.
Yeah, I think it is a new album. It is a new album. So I totally screwed this up. And had I have realized this, I would have listened to this album. Because the videos that I have posted really kind of stood out to me. Let's see, and there's a compilation from Linkin Park, Paper Cuts Singles Collection 2000 to 2023, and a live album from Johnny Thunders, Cosa Nostra Live at the Mud Club, Gothenburg, 1983. So, Jeremy, what did you listen to this time around?
Yeah, this was an interesting week. I mean, I started listening to Ghost Stories, the latest and probably the last album from Blue Oyster Cult, a collection of sort of previously unreleased material. This one it even included a cover of "Kick Out the Jams." It sounds a little bit dated, to be honest. It sort of begs the question as to why these tracks weren't released in the first place. They released them much later in their career, just as to bring out another album. I mean, it's not bad, but it sort of it highlights the variety of songs that the band has done over the years. But it'll only appeal to the completest BOC fans out there, I think. And it's certainly not a patch on The Symbol Remains, which I thought was a really cracking album and new songs they brought out in 2020. So yeah, I moved on to the Riot V album, Mean Streets, the successor band to Riot, of course. And, I haven't listened to much to Riot since the 1980s. I know that might sound strange because they've released a lot of albums. So I came to this one with fairly fresh ears, and, it's got nice sort of power metal tones to it, a little bit of shades of Man of War on there. Notably on the opening track, Hail to the Warriors, which I kind of liked. I really like the mix and production on this. It's the sort of metal I like. It, the guitars really attack. They drive the songs along. They've sort of got a nice mix of melody in there as well. They've even got a Judas Priest style riff on Love Beyond the Grave. So overall, I liked it, quite a bit, even though it's a little bit tongue in cheek in parts. but I didn't pick it as my album of the week, and I could have. It was, it was one that was in the running for it, but I picked a really great hard rocking album from the Swiss band King Zebra, Between the Shadows on Frontiers. I mean, there's maybe nothing very original on this, and a lot of bands are like that nowadays. It's just a very good classic rock listen. It's very polished production. You can hear all the instruments. There's a really great vocal from Eric St. Michael's. This guy would have been a big star in the 80s for sure. He's got that sort of persona, he's got that voice, and there's some real great riffs on here, some really super youthful energy, and it's topped off with a good deal of class as well. So, King Zebra is my album of the week. Check it out.
Cool. I want to send a quick hello to Chris Sinzak from Decibel Geek, who's joining us in the chat, saying, for once, available to watch. Happiest of Fridays to you and to you, sir. Glad that you're here with us. And he seems to agree with the Blacktop Mojo assessment. All right. Cool. So I listened to Vultures, Sentinels. That's out on Metal Blade. If you're a fan of Merciful Fate, King Diamond, that's probably right up your alley. The Tier album, Battle Hymns. Yeah. Speaking of Manowar, Battle Ballads. This takes me back to listening to a band of this ilk or Hammerfall or anything like this, and it just makes me listen to some early Halloween. I will say this: this album sounds great. The production sounds really good. The guitars are thick, heavy. They're tuned flat, so it's got that to it, which makes it sound really cool, but just not my thing. It's a shame. I would have listened to the Attacker album. I did get to listen to the North Lane album, because some of the North Lane stuff is, although it's modern, it does have, again, similar to what I mentioned about the Era album. It's got some melody and stuff to it, but this EP really did not. My pick of the week is from an Australian band called Territ. The album is called Glimpse of the Dawn. This is a band that had gone away for quite some time. This is their first album in quite a long time. And it's a real throwback to early 80s, new wave of British heavy metal sounding music. And it's produced in that vein. So if you're into that sort of hard rock, heavy metal, I would say check out Glimpse of the Dawn by Territ. So cool. Let's see. Moving forward to the 19th. Listened to a lot of stuff from the 19th. Had new albums.
That's good, because I didn't.
I saw that. New albums from Pearl Jam, My Dying Bride, High on Fire, The Melvins, No Effects, Billy Morrison, Praying Mantis, Don Jameson, Vanden Plas, The Ghost Inside, Dune, Blaze of Perdition, Bloodbound. I actually listened to the Bloodbound. I didn't mark that off. Let's see. Lightworker, Dayseeker, Balance of Power, Adder, Tomorrow's Rain, for Schwans, I guess this is pronounced. Noctura, Veracalpa, Cloud Nothings, See You Space Cowboy, Thief, Duel, Quantum, The Outfit, Johnny Nasty Boots, Martin Howarth, Satanic North, Atreyu Billis, and EPs from Unpeople and Son of Ra, and actually a compilation from Moonspell. So you listened to 2 albums. Which 2 did you listen to, and which was your pick?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that Johnny Nasty Boots, I mean, I really need to go back and listen to that, because I hope I like it, because I'd love to have a T-shirt with that on. Yeah, it was that was well. The reason I didn't listen to it very much, I was on holiday and I didn't take my headphones away. I ended up sitting on the beach. I had my phone and I was flicking through, and then I was looking around for my headphones, and I realized I'd left them at home, and I was mad, absolutely livid. So I'm just gonna go straight to the album of the week because it's a really
Okay.
good one. It's Defiance by the UK band Praying Mantis. And just like the Lionheart album, which I reviewed the previous month, it's a really fine collection of melodic hard rock. I've listened to this quite a few times, actually. It's a long time since I've heard this band. I mean, I haven't really sort of followed them, over the years. I pretty much ignored them since the 1980s when they first came out, and I remember them when they did. Um, and I think I need to hear some more of their music because this is their 13th studio album. And as with the Lionheart album, they really try to write sort of listener friendly pop rock sort of earworms. They're very successful at it as well, but similar to Lionheart, they seem to get it right. Dutch singer John Kuipers, has a really good voice for the band as well. And if at times they sound a little bit like Europe, it's not to their detriment. They pull it off quite well. There's even a version of the Russ Ballard song "I Surrender," which, of course, you're familiar with from Rainbow. I didn't realize, but the band actually recorded "I Surrender" for the debut album, but they were actually not allowed to release it back in the day. Or presumably there's a lot of contractual obligations, and Rainbow decided to go forwards with it, and they were stopped from doing that. And maybe if they had released it back in the day, maybe they'd have been a slightly bigger band than they were. So I would suggest just go and listen to it. It's a really good melodic rock band, and a good melodic rock album. Praying Mantis, Defiance, great album.
Cool. So I listened to quite a few albums on here, or that came out this week. I listened to Pearl Jam's Dark Matter, probably their best overall album since Versus, in my opinion. More up my stream, I would say, or something that's up my alley, or however you want to say it. But still, just didn't hit it home for me. My Dying Bride was okay. Immortal Binding, similar to what you said before with a few other albums, just kind of samey, doom metal. Listen, the first song is really really good, which is one of the singles that I posted on Patreon. It's really cool, but nothing else kind of equals it after. It's all kind of samey. High on Fire, the cometh the storm. High on Fire is a band that I either really love or really bores me.
Mm.
There's always one really great song off of the album. It's usually the first cut on the album, and true to form, that's exactly how it was. Not a bad album, but if you've listened to them before, you've heard it all before. The Melvins, Tarantula Heart. Similar to what I just said about High on Fire, I either absolutely love their music or it loses me. First song is great, got some really cool melodies, and then you're 14 minutes in and realize, wait a second, this is still the same song. It's all over the place, as is the entire album. I mean, I know that they have a lot of diehard fans. I don't want to piss anyone off. I can take it in small doses. Small doses. Jesus, tongue tied. Billy Morrison, the Morrison Project, was really looking forward to this. This has to have the long lost Ozzy tracks that Mark once talked to Steve Stevens about, because there's several tracks with Steve Stevens, Billy Morrison, and there's at least one with Ozzy on here, which the single has already come out. I like the album. It is all over the place. That's not a bad thing. There's a lot of different people contributing to this. What else did I listen to? I listened to the Bloodbound, the Tales of Nosferatu. It's power metal, basically. This is a hard week for me to pick from. There's a lot of stuff that I listened to. There's a lot of stuff that came out. Um, man, I'm gonna have to give the nod to the Billy Morrison because I think it's gonna be what I'll end up listening to the most. I mean, there's nothing that's really original, but I could see myself listening to it more and more. Um, and wow, I'm just realizing that with the 26th, I did the opposite of you, Jeremy. Oh no, not true. I just didn't write down what I did listen to. All right, here we go. Anyway, new albums from Accept, Humanoid, Deicide, Dark Throne, Black Tusk, Lee Aaron, Inter Alma, Darkness, not The Darkness, but Darkness, something that you found out about. Uh, OU, I don't know how it's pronounced. They're a Chinese band. Uh, Party Cannon, 6x6, Vesperian Sorrow, Pentagram Chili, Disbelief, Amiensos. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Ard, Microwave, Jolly Jackers, EP from Wretched Blessed, live albums from Transatlantic and Tigers of Pantang, and reissues from Def Leppard, Pyromania Expanded Edition. I'm surprised that Phil Collin didn't have them include songs off of Hysteria on it. Disillusion, and the compilation from Wasted. Won't Get Out Alive, Wasted Volume 1, 83 through 86. Now, before we jump to going through this list, how many years was Wasted around?
Not that many.
83 to 90, maybe?
Yeah, at a push, yeah.
Are we expecting a volume 2, which will cover 87 through 90, the Danny Vaughan years before he went and formed Taiketo?
There could even be a volume 3.
There could even be a volume 3. There you go.
Yeah, wild.
All right. I know that we both listened to one of these albums, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. What did you listen to, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm kind of wishing I listened to Wasted because it'd be quite interesting to go back and listen to some of the old stuff. And I did actually give a quick listen to Pyromania, but then I found out that it was exactly the same as I remember it. So there wasn't anything new really for me. I mean, obviously they put on some extras, but they hadn't really re-recorded it or anything. So it was the same old album, but it's a good album, so I'm not knocking it. But as far as new albums are concerned, I listened a little bit to The Way Forward by Black Tusk, the American sludge metal act. That really, one or two songs in, and I'm thinking, well, I've had enough of this by now. It's not my kind of thing to listen to that all the time. It was okay. But a special mention goes to Live Blood by the Whitley Bay born new album, Come Melodic Rock Stalwarts Tigers of Pantang. I remember listening to them back in the day. As soon as they started, obviously John Sykes was in there for a while. Where is John Sykes? We'd love to hear from him. Please phone in now on this number. Which what this album by them, by the way, is mostly sort of 1980s Tigers tunes, which was quite interesting by the present lineup. So you get some sort of updated old songs and a bit of feel for what the Tigers gigs are like now, but playing all the old tracks. So I think it was good, but I think it lost a little bit of what the original magic of Tigers of Pantang was. That harder edge was not there. The sort of enthusiasm that they had from the original band. So I'm not sure it's an album that I'd listen to, a huge amount. And I think that they were missing John Deverell as well, the old singer who, used to sing Paris by Air and Do It Good and Love Potion Number 9. And his voice was really missing off those tracks. So it was a really easy choice this week for my pick. I mean, the album of the week is going to have to go to the 17th studio album from the Teutonic Rockers, Accept. They're 6 now with Mark Tornillo on vocals. I mean, what you get is, it's a very typical Accept offering, the usual riffs, the recognizable vocal sound, the same quality production. You know what you're going to get. I mean, probably overall, it's a slightly better album than the previous one, I think, and that's what I'll say. Too Mean to Die I quite enjoyed, but I think I'm enjoying this one a little bit more. It's hardly breaking any new ground, of course. It's Accept what you know what you're going to get. It's not on the level of Stalingrad, but still, after a few listens, it's consistency, and it deserves to be album of the week.
Okay. So I listened to Humanoid as well, and I think you summed it up very well. I think that it's probably their most solid album out of the last few that they've released. Similar to what you said, it's not as good as Stalingrad. I think every album since Stalingrad has kind of been a step behind Stalingrad. But out of the last 3, 4, it's probably their most consistent from beginning to end. I'll say that. The other album that I listened to was 6x6 Beyond Shadowland. It was a good album. My younger son Adrian says to me, "This isn't bad. I like a few of the songs off of it." So I'm sure that he's already added them to one of his playlists. But I think that this album has the Yard Metal seal of approval, more than likely. Just because of the vein that it's in. This is more or less a super group with different components of people that have come from other prog bands. I believe one of the members is also, I don't want to screw this up. Let me look up. Oh, all right. So one of them you're pretty familiar with. Why did I do that? I had all the information in front of me. All right. This is right off of their homepage. 6x6 featuring from Saga guitarist Ian Crichton, the Niall Glocker, powerhouse drummer for British metal masters Saxon, and vocalist and multi-instrumentalist Robert Berry from Three and Alliance are pleased to announce the release of their sophomore offering, Beyond Shadowland. So Robert Berry is the one that I'm thinking of working in different progressive type outfits. Obviously, Nigel Glocker is known for Saxon, less prog. The album runs a lot of different gamuts of hard rock and has a real proggy feel to it. It's on Inside Out Music, so Inside Out specializes in prog rock. You're listening to stuff that's very much in line with other stuff that they're releasing on the label. I wanted to mention it just to give people another option to listen to, but for me, I will have to also say that the Accept is probably the album that sticks out to me the most for this week. So cool. Jeremy and I do these shows to, for, as I say, for the quote unquote lazy listeners who say that there's no good music coming out. There's always good music coming out. And this way, when you put your year end poll together and submit it to Signals from Mars, we've helped you do some of the homework. You can go back and listen to these individual episodes. They're listed right there on the homepage. And you can go month by month. By the end of the year, you'll have 12 episodes to listen to. And maybe you even want to go back further and say, hey, did I miss out on any albums from last year? We've got you covered. We've got those there as well. So we've also got you covered for the summer months. Jeremy is wearing a Signals from Mars cap. If you've been privy to me trying to sell our wares here, I refer to it as the Signals from Mars Jeremy cap.
There it is.
Jeremy.
It's a
You
snug
had
fit.
There you go. We had Brad Dahl wearing the Brad bucket hat last week. In our household, we have received the new distressed classic pullover hoodie.
Oh
And
wow.
yes, even though it is a gray hoodie, everything else appears in gray. All of the design that Mr. Anthony Mackie has put together for us. We're still awaiting the distressed women's premium V-neck T-shirt, but if you're interested, we've also got the classic T-shirt. We've got the classic hoodie.
I've got that one too. That
Yeah,
comes out in the winter.
I've got the hoodie and the classic tee. My wife did say about her um, hoodie that it is quite warm. So that has
Yeah, they're
been
good.
the
Mm.
going comment. It is quite soft and quite warm.
Yeah, they're soft. Yeah, it's nice. Nice
Yeah.
quality.
Got the windbreaker jacket. We've got the bomber jacket. And we've also got the beanie, which, hey, maybe somebody wants to wear a beanie, or maybe they're in the southern half of the world where winter is approaching, where winter is coming.
Or just bald.
So, or just bald. I
Yeah.
want one of
And
these.
you need a hat. I've got a friend of mine who he's never without his woolly hat for that
There you
reason.
go.
Mm.
And yeah, there's a small kickback for each one of these pieces of merch, which helps fund stuff here. And it all adds up. Anyway, we're gonna talk about some questions. Jeremy's always great at coming up with different questions and different things. So we've got three things that he's thrown my way, and I'm sure that there are others that will come up along the way as well. So number one, we were just talking about accept. Wolf Hoffman responds to Peter Balt's comments that accept albums started to sound the same. What do you think about that?
Mm. Well, I think he's got a fair point. Um, I think the last 3, 4, 5 albums by Accept do sound very similar. You know, you could put, particularly the last 3 albums, I think you could mix them up and you could put various songs on each album and you're listening to pretty much the same album. That doesn't mean to say though that they're bad albums, as we've already mentioned. You know, the current album we really like. We think it's better than the previous album. So they've got great songwriting, but they just sound similar. And I don't think that's a huge problem. And a lot of bands need their signature sound. I think we'd all probably be pleased if Iron Maiden went back to their 80s sound and played a lot of the music that they used to play then on a new album.
Right.
Uh, they have actually branched out and played sort of more proggier stuff and longer tracks, and we're not so happy with that side of things. So, you know, it's not a bad thing that they sound the same. And I think the argument in the article was also that he has left the band, so they often say that when they've left the band. It's a
Right.
kind of passing remark, and I guess there is a little bit of that to it as well. But he's got a point, you know.
Yeah,
There is, yeah.
I don't think that the Blabbermouth server is down once again. Um, I think Peter is being honest. As you say, there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, the everything from Stalingrad onwards has kind of a connection. They all sound pretty much the same. And listen, they're catering to their audience. There are so many other bands that do the same thing, so it's not unique to them. It works for them. If that's what Wolf Hoffman chooses to do, then so be it. It's his band.
Mm.
Number two, Man, I forgot to wear my Def Leppard t-shirt. I'm wearing an Anthrax t-shirt. A Volume 8 t-shirt if anyone is interested. Anyway, so Joe Elliott has come out, and just to sum up his quotes, Def Leppard aren't metal, and only two new wave of British heavy metal bands made it.
Mm.
Okay, let's take this in parts. So he said this during his recent appearance with Raconteurs with Gary Kemp and Guy Pratt. So he says, I have an issue with the term heavy metal because everybody outside of rock always thinks if you're a heavy metal band, it's like bad news. You get this impression that everybody's a moron. Okay. AC/DC were a blues rock band. UFO and Thin Lizzy were not heavy metal. Motorhead, even they had a blues influence to them. Queen were never a heavy metal band, but they had a couple of heavy metal songs thanks to Brian May. And I think we were pretty much in the same way. It was rock, absolutely heavy rock for sure. Okay. If you listen to our first EP from 1979, there's a song called Ride Into the Sun, which was a pop song. Then you have Get Your Rocks Off, was a full-on rock song. If we're heavy metal, then so are the Rolling Stones, because it's two guitars, bass, drums, and the singer. It's a silly, silly term. I like rock. When you start pigeonholing, it gets on my tits. And to be quite honest, because can't we just all be just a rock band or a pop band or both? Now, 4 years ago, he mentioned, where is this? When he was, let's see, addressed the fact that Def Leppard's debut single, Get Your Rocks Off, on the band's own label, helped kickstart the whole new wave British heavy metal movement. While a handful of no album bands, most notably Def Leppard and Iron Maiden, achieved global success, most of the genre has been considered relatively obscure. Ironically, thrash, the more extreme metal subgenre that was directly influenced by Nawabum, wound up having more commercial appeal and staying power. Okay, so he told You Discover Music, even after all these years, the British media still try to lump us in with Nawabum, whereas the American media still try to pigeonhole us as a hair metal band. But none of that has ever stuck because we became established as a standalone band. The fact of the matter is, only two bands of note survived the Nawabum tag. That's us and Iron Maiden. We're vastly different bands. Def Leppard were where we are now, playing stadiums and beyond, and inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because of who we are rather than because of we were part of a movement. In 2005, he said, "We've had this argument many times. If you put Lemmy, Scotty Ian, and Ronnie James Dio in a room and say, heavy metal, Def Leppard, discuss, they'd all burst out laughing. But at the same time, you can take Pink and Christina Aguilera and say, Def Leppard, pop music. They do the same thing. I don't know where we stand. I don't think we ever believed we were a metal band. I think Iron Maiden were a metal band and a very good one. We're a rock band." And it goes on to say lumping us with Iron Maiden was as ridiculous as lumping us with Depeche Mode. And we've spent 20 odd years trying to tell the whole world that we're not a British heavy metal band. Now, if people finally hear the songs that influenced us, they might finally get the picture. Anyway, all right. Needless to say, they covered Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode. So
Mm.
His argument is beyond stupid on various of these points. The only asshole that seems to have a problem with the word heavy metal is Robert Plant. Since because all of these people still look up to Robert Plant, and rightfully so to a certain extent. Joe Elliott seems to think that heavy metal is a bad term. On Through the Night, High and Dry, and Power Mania have more to do with influencing bands like Armored Saint, like Metallica. I think if you ask Scott Ian, he's going to tell you that the first few Def Leppard albums, maybe hard rock, not heavy, not full on metal, could be considered heavy metal. I think he would say that they were influential to a lot of bands that were doing what they do or what they did in the early 80s. To say that John Sykes era Thin Lizzy was not heavy metal is beyond stupid. And it is showing how out of touch he is. Did Def Leppard with Hysteria not puff out their hair, dye their hair blonde, wear eyeliner, wear ripped jeans like all the bands from Hollywood were doing? I mean, so much shit that they were doing can be thought up as hair metal. Things that they were doing could be grouped in with Nuwabum. To say that them and Iron Maiden are the only ones to make it is having a huge set of balls, having a tremendous ego, and being lost within your own ego. Is Saxon a band that no one has heard of? Some people group Priest and Motorhead in the new wave of British heavy metal. Did those bands not make it? I mean, Joe Elliott has such a desire to be loved, to be considered pop music, and for as much as he wants to say that no, we're not pop, no, you're a pop rock band. To say that you group Pink and Christina Aguilera and ask them, I don't know, ask Taylor Swift. You recorded with her. Would she consider you more of a pop band, or would she consider you more of a metal band? I would think she would lean more towards pop. Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, just taking on they're the only two bands that came out. I'd agree with you about Saxon. Saxon were a big band around when they came out. You know, they had a lot of hit singles then. They had a bit of a lull. They've never been as big as Leopard or Iron Maiden, but they've come back strongly. And they're doing really well again. And they've got in the top 10 in the UK album charts recently with their latest album. So I'd say that they've been a big success from the new album era. So to say just only two bands, yeah, okay, on record sales and seats in theaters, yeah, we know those two bands are enormous. But there's a lot of bands that have done well. Raven are doing quite well.
Yeah.
Still touring and producing albums, and we all know the name. Diamond Head did okay, and none of these bands were ever as big as Def Leppard, but they all survived and they're all well known and they're all producing great music. So it's dissing even the smaller bands who are, still carving a trade out of it and doing well, really, because it can't all be mega stars. So that's the first point. And the other point is that I think Def Leppard have changed. They've changed a lot, and they've carved out what they wanted to do. They wanted to become a commercial pop rock band. They started off as an old school heavy metal band, because old school heavy metal was different to what heavy metal is now.
Right.
When we were kids in the 1980s, a lot of softer rock bands were called heavy metal. Iron Maiden were not as heavy as they could have been initially, and Saxon and all these bands, they produced commercial type music, but it was all what we classed as heavy metal, and I classed Def Leppard in with them. We all thought they were, they were part of the new wave of British heavy metal, and the albums that you mentioned are the ones that you would class as heavy metal. High and Dry is a hard rocking, heavy, old school heavy metal album. There's no doubt about it. But yes, the band has changed, and yes, Joe Elliott's completely right. If he wants to say that they're not a metal band now, that's fine.
Right.
We know they're not. They produce soft rock. They produce a load of absolute shite, if you're asking me. But they used to be. They used to be a really good band, and they're still good live. So I'm not knocking them on 2 points, but on the third point, what they're producing on record is terrible. It's as bad as Bon Jovi, and those two bands were fantastic in their heyday. So yeah, that's fine. But he shouldn't diss heavy metal as a genre either, because we all know there's one band out there that is knocking Def Leppard off the planet at the moment. It's Judas Priest. They've just released a fantastic album. They're touring, producing absolutely top-notch heavy metal, British heavy metal, which is blowing away Def Leppard. And I'm sorry, there's a little bit of anger creeping in here, but it shouldn't be, because I love I love all music and I love all bands, but you shouldn't really be dissing it. He should be really associating with it in some way. He doesn't have to say that they are a heavy metal band, Def Leppard, but he could be sort of saying, I appreciate that we were once, and that we are lumped in with that sort of group, really.
Yeah, it's as if they're ashamed of that era of the band, and it's dumb, because, and it's what gets me all the time. No, Hysteria's are our most important album. Yeah, because it bought you cars and houses, but which was the most influential? What are people going to remember? What are the, and it's not that. List of These aren't all of them, but I'll quickly go over this list on Wikipedia. Black Rose, Blitzkrieg, Bronze, Chromoly, Cloven Hoof, Demon, who just released an album, Diamond Head, Diano, Dumpy's Rusty Nuts, which I believe Mike Jones brought up. Girl School, Gog Magog, Grand Prix, Grim Reaper, Hell, Holocaust, Iron Maiden, Jaguar, Lionheart, Mama's Boys, Motorhead is on here. Persian Risk, Praying Mantis, Quartz, Raven, Samson, Satan, Savage, Saxon, Shy, Sweet Savage, Tank, Tokyo Blade, Tigers of Pang Tang, Urchin. Urchin is kind of underground, but Adrian Smith Band. Vardis, Venom, White Spirit, Witchfinder General. So
yeah, and there's even more. There's Fist, and there's more, and there's Samson, and you go on and on. It's just there's so many. Yeah,
okay.
There's so many of them.
So let's look at it this way. Who's sold more albums? Who's sold more tickets? Iron Maiden or Def Leppard? And for him to say, no, we're playing stadiums. Yeah, you're playing stadiums with 3 or 4 other bands. Def Leppard on their own is not playing stadiums. They're playing amphitheaters at the most. So let's be honest. They had to tour with Motley Crue and Poison to play stadiums last year.
There's a big reason for that as well. Is that the youngsters are into Iron Maiden, but they're not as into Def Leppard as they are Iron Maiden, because they want that harder edge. That's why you see so many more kids going to Iron Maiden concerts, because it's edgy and it's got that sort of, independence feel that they like in a band, and they like the imagery. And Def Leppard doesn't have that really. So it's a bit Def Leppard really. If you go to Def Leppard concert over here in the UK, it's all people my age. It's a lot of 40 and 50-year-old women going.
Well, and I'm assuming that in the States it's the same thing.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, you mentioned Priest. There's another band out there that has no issue saying that they're heavy metal. Iron Maiden have no issue saying that they're heavy metal. Um, Metallica have no issue saying that they're heavy metal.
yeah.
Um, so who's selling more tickets? Who's selling more albums today?
Mm,
I've got my money on Metallica, and they've never had an issue with saying that they're a heavy metal band. They've never had to
mm,
go out of their way to say we're not this, we're not that. So,
mm.
and again, if you're not a hair metal band, well then Joe Elliott. Don't I mean he's got the hairstyle of a grandmother. I mean, let's be honest. You know,
Yeah,
don't
and
dye your hair blonde.
the other thing is, we know which Viv Campbell would rather be. We really know that, surely. I mean, he's playing on one string for Def Leppard, surely, and for when he's playing, when he's playing in the Dio stuff, he's playing guitar. He's rocking out. He's playing heavy metal. He
He's
can't be he
he's
can't be enjoying it in Def Leppard.
he's losing money. He's paying to play as last in line.
Mm,
He's just an employee in Def Leppard, which allows him to do his hobby, his love, which is
mm.
playing heavy metal.
There you
Steve
go.
Brown saved Def Leppard. Yes. Yes. He saved Def Leppard. He saved Ace. And I'm sure he'll save Vinnie Vincent next. All right. Last point of the night. New Deep Purple single. And does the world still need Deep Purple?
Mm,
When my 11-year-old comes rushing in the morning and says, "There's a new Deep Purple single out. They're coming out with a new album. Did you hear the song yet? It's really good." That's an 11-year-old saying it. And I
mm.
know that I am lucky to have that in my household. All right. I know that it's far from the norm. So it's exciting to me to see somebody so young want to hear new music from a band like that. And I see him interpret things like he does AC/DC, like he does Iron Maiden, like he does other bands where maybe, I mean, with the AC/DC, I like the last album, but there's other stuff that maybe I'm not into, but he's got fresh ears, fresh eyes on it, and it makes me appreciate some of it more. What did you think about the single?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because the last sort of maybe 10 years worth of Deep Purple, I couldn't name you a track that's a
Right.
hit single. There's no commercial songs that they've released, not like the old era, the Smoke on the Waters, the Woman from Tokyo, all that sort of stuff. But they've done something that's very interesting. What they've done is, and I remember reading about this, I think Ian Gillan and maybe Ian Pace even mentioned this, they all come to the table and they've decided now that they'll just play what they really enjoy playing, and they'll see where it goes. And you can really tell when you listen to their albums. The other thing is, they seem to throw a lot of money into the production, and the production, I think, is really, really good. Ian Gillan's voice is sounding really good. It's really clear. You've got that lovely keyboard sound, very rich sound on the keyboards. I really like this single. I think it's good. I think it's very modern Deep Purple. They've gone in this new direction, but they've kept that sort of old sound. You know it's Deep Purple. You've got that, the keyboards are there, the vocal is there. It's got that sort of laid back feel that is a Deep Purple type track. And they've obviously got a new guitarist now, Simon McBride on this one, and he seems to have knit into it. And I'm really looking forward to listening to the album, because I think it's, again, like the Rolling Stones. They, the last album by them was really good, and I'm kind of thinking that they're so late in their career, they're just really enjoying playing music and coming up with classic sounding, not classic sounding, but classy sounding tracks,
Right.
which and there'll be a nice mix on the album. They sort of do the odd bluesy one, they do a little funky one. It reminds me a little bit of do you remember the album Future Shock by Gillan, where he kind of went off on a tangent and he decided to do what he wanted to do, and it kind of worked. The production on that wasn't very good, but the Bernie Torme guitaring was fantastic, and he did all these really weird and odd sounding tracks, and they all came together. And I think that's what Deep Purple are doing, and if it appeals to the young people, I think that's brilliant. If they all get into Deep Purple and then they go back and listen to all the old stuff and say, hey, this is, have you heard Burn? Have you heard Stormbringer? That's fantastic for me. So yeah, they've got a real place in music. They're not going to be around forever. Could be another album or two out of them, and they're not going to last forever, unfortunately. But it's great to see them. And there's three not original members, but three of the the members that go back all the way. One of them's an original, so it's great.
And that's interesting, because nobody is saying, "Oh, they're just a tribute band." Have you ever heard any Deep Purple fan say they're just a tribute band?
No.
Which is what so many people say about Judas Priest now.
Yeah.
Oh, they're a tribute band. There's only one. Ian Hill is the only original. Yeah, okay, but the rest of the guys have done impressive things. Bob Ezrin has produced this new album as well. I'm wondering if Simon McBride being added to the mix has added something in the studio, with maybe there's a little bit more levity to it. I don't know. But I think it's great that, Priest, Deep Purple, the Stones, as you mentioned, some of these bands so late in their career are just kind of saying, fuck it, we're just going to do what we want to do. And, kind of don't care about that radio single, or, quite the opposite of the Def Leppard mentality.
Yeah.
If and I've said this a million times, they're never going to release another High and Dry, but if they sat down and just wrote a good rock album, they can't even claim to be a rock band, because they're not releasing rock music. I mean, it's, to quote you, utter shite. So,
yeah, I mean, two or three songs on an album is okay. It's listenable, but beyond that, there's a lot of crap on it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just a rock band. Yes, sure you are. All right. Anyway, I knew that the Def Leppard portion of the show was going to get me going, but yes, just to remind everyone, Steve Brown saved Def Leppard. He also wrote all of Ace's last album. Don't let Ace know that. Anyway, on that note, I do want to thank you once again, Jeremy, for joining me tonight. I want to thank Mr. Sinzak for joining us in the chat. And anyone who's watching or listening to the replay of this, thank you so much. Please subscribe and tell your friends all about the show. Follow us on social media. Share the posts on social media, and follow us on Patreon. $2 a month gets you in with this great crowd, troll-free environment. Miss talking about music? We talk about it every single day right there on Patreon. Anyway, thank you once again, folks, and we will see you next time right here on Signals from Mars. See ya.
Thank you for watching the Signals from Mars live stream. You can watch the show live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, or check out replays on YouTube. Go to signalsfrommars.com for more information. This concludes our show.